Well, hello and welcome to the Charles Cook Podcast. Today, my guest is Nate Dressel. He lives here in Hamblen County, and Nate is running for Tennessee State House District 10 seat. And so we're going to let him tell you a little bit about his background, you know, what he does and everything, and then we'll get on into the conversation. So, welcome, Nate, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Appreciate you having me on the show today. That's correct. I am running for Tennessee State House District 10, which is all of Grainger County, Tennessee, and most of Hamblen County. A little bit about my background. So still in the military in the National Guard, but spent almost 20 years as a Green Beret. Traveled all over the world, stationed all over America. I'm a husband, father, got two lovely boys, and my lovely wife Jennifer. And I'm also a small business owner and I guess serial entrepreneur. After many failures, we finally got one that stuck. But yeah, so excuse me. My wife and I own and operate a coffee roasting company here in Morristown, Tennessee called Frontier Coffee, where we roast, package, and distribute coffee all over America.
Cool. I'm a coffee person, so I can't don't start my day without it. So I'll have to look you up sometime. So y'all don't sell direct to the public. I mean, as far as coffee,
We do.
like Starbucks, is that?
We've had several coffee shops. We just sold our coffee shop down in Gatlinburg. That's a whole other conversation. Logistically, it was a nightmare to get people to actually show up to work.
Yes.
But yeah, we recently sold our retail shop, and we're focused on the roastery. Really developing our product and expanding our distribution. So that's both our direct customer distribution via our website, as well as our wholesale distribution. We do custom labeling. We're branching out into distribution for our brand into retail stores, and doing third-party logistics services for really any brands that want to have coffee in addition to their other products. So we've got quite a robust operation going in Morristown right now, and we're throwing gas on the fire and trying to grow as much as we can.
Great. So you sound like you're a pretty busy guy with your business and your family, and I get it. I work a full-time job and got a family, so you're also still in the military, National Guard. So a guy that's busy as you, what has got you so interested in running for political office?
I guess once you hit a certain point of frustration, you either have to do something about it or quit complaining.
Yeah.
So if you want me to just roll, I can kind of go into kind of the backstory of where I got involved in local politics here, and you can stop me along the way, ask any questions, and I'll.
It's just a question. What got you involved? I mean.
Yeah. So we relocated to Hamblen County, Tennessee in 2020 during the great COVID reshuffle. I had been stationed out in California. I was working active duty, and our coffee company started taking off in 2019. We were picking up contracts to do event coffee, marathons, triathlons, wine festivals, state fairs, all over the place. So I went and talked to my boss on active duty and said, "Hey, sir, my company's doing really well. I'd really love to go, be part-time for the National Guard and focus on being an entrepreneur." And they approved it. Excuse me. They approved it. I found a new home in the National Guard and left my active duty paycheck, my benefits, all that security. And that was November of 2019. So we had contracts lined up for 2020, basically from San Diego all the way up to British Columbia, to serve coffee at every single Ironman triathlon and festivals all up and down the coast. Well, lo and behold, about March 17th of 2020 rolls around, and I didn't have a single contract to sell coffee for the rest of 2020, nor did I have a full-time job or benefits or any of that stuff. So we ended up puckering up real tight, finding a place that was still open, a place that fit our morals, our values, our religion, our political leanings, and that happened to be East Tennessee. So we relocated here with whatever change we had in our pockets and whatever little remnants of Frontier coffee were still alive, and made it work. So that's how I got to Tennessee 4 years ago. When we first got here, Mayor Bill Britton, the Hamblen County mayor, enacted his authority on the state order. I believe at the time it was Governor Lee's executive order number 54, maybe, was the first executive order allowing counties to do mask mandates. So Mayor Bill Lee enacts the mask mandate for Hamblen County right after I had fled the communist state of California, being a constitutionalist, a patriot, somebody who believes in freedom and liberty, and not quarantining the healthy. So I moved to Tennessee, and the first thing that I see is I'm not allowed in the public library. I'm not allowed in the county courthouse. I'm not allowed anywhere without a mask. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? So that didn't sit right with me. And then as Governor Lee's executive order, which basically passed authority down to counties to implement mask mandates as they saw fit, Governor Lee extended the executive order. Bill Britton extended his executive order. I didn't think any of it was right. I don't even know if any of it was really constitutional, but at the time, nobody was fighting back. So that was the first hairs that went up on my neck, saying, hey, what is this supposed conservative mayor doing in this deep red town, telling people that they have to muzzle when they go into our public buildings that we own? And I really didn't see any elected officials or higher ranking appointed officials standing up and saying, Mayor, you can't do this. This is not right. Nobody was standing up. So my spidey sense was definitely on edge at that point. And then, so eventually Governor Lee's, first Hamblen County's executive order expired, I believe, February 27th or 28th of 2021. That was when Bill Lee's executive order masking Hamblen County expired. Hamblen County School Board continued to muzzle our children. I wasn't okay with it. I wrote letters. I know tons of parents showed up to school board meetings. Well, excuse me. Finally, Governor Lee's executive order expires. So in my mind, the executive order at the state level is expired. The county mayor is no longer enacting an executive order. The school board at the county level has no right to muzzle these children anymore. So the day that the executive order expired, we had this chat with my son, who was in 6th grade at the time, I believe. He said, you do not have to wear that mask if you don't want to. There's no legal authority for the school board, your principal, teachers, anyone to tell you to do it. And we left it up to him. We said, hey, if you do not want to wear this thing, which he hated, all the kids hated it. It was miserable. It was child abuse, actually. We said, if you do not want to wear it, it's completely up to you. Here is the paper with the executive order that expires at 11:59, the previous night. You can go in, show the greeter this paper, and tell them you have no authority to mask me anymore. Well, being a very principled young man, he said, I don't want to wear the mask anymore, and I'm willing to stand up for myself. So he walked into Westview Middle School here in Hamblen County and told the greeter in the breezeway. She said, hey, you need to put a mask on. He says, actually, according to executive order, I believe at the time it was extension 73, maybe 74, executive order 73 or 74, which expired at 11:59 p.m. last night. You have no authority to tell me to wear a mask anymore. At which point the greeter tells him, well, you need to go talk to the principal, who was also in the breezeway over at Westview Middle School. So Caden walks across the hallway, talks to Dr. Patrick, who says, Caden, you need to wear a mask. And he says, according to executive order, which expired at 11:59 last night, you have no legal authority to put a mask on me. And she said, okay, we're going to need to go call your dad. And my son responds, don't worry, he's already in your office. Because we knew exactly how this was going to go. The school board didn't listen to anyone. They didn't even reply to my emails or my letters. They don't care. And Dr. Patrick walks my son down to the office. So I say, hey, executive order expired last night at 11:59. Tell me your legal authority to put a muzzle on my child. And she gets a little flustered and says, well, I got a text message from the superintendent saying that we were wearing masks. And I said, that's really nice, but give me the legal authority that makes you think that you can put a mask on my child or any other children. And she says, well, we decided at the beginning of the year that we were wearing masks. And I said, that's also nice. Give me the legal authority. This goes back and forth for a little bit, and she's just getting flustered. And I only have to ask one question. Show me the legal authority.
Right.
If you do that, then we can go further with this conversation. But right now, there's nothing allowing you to muzzle these children anymore. Eventually, she gets flustered enough where she says, well, everyone else is doing it. And as the words rolled out of her mouth, she turned about as red as the stripes on your flag right now. I mean, what is that adage that we always tell our children? If everyone's jumping off a cliff, are you going to do it?
Right.
So this rolled out of Dr. Patrick's mouth. Well, everyone else is doing it, so he should too. So, okay, we're done here. So that was the last day that my child attended school with Hamblen County School Board. So all of this leads up to 2022 elections. All of the incumbents, virtually all of the incumbents, are running unopposed for school board. Well, Mayor Britton was primaried by Dr. Daniel Park, but by and large, people were not opposed, especially the school board. You know, I saw parents show up in droves, you know, shaking their fists at the school board. School board didn't care, yet none of the people who were that upset about it threw their name in the hat to run. So then I started looking into, you know, who's sitting in all these positions, who's sitting in the county seats, who's sitting in the school board, you know, what's this mayor all about? And I found that, don't quote me on the times here, but I believe when I looked at the school board, the most junior member of the Hamblen County School Board had been there for about 18 years at the time. I believe there were several members that were pushing the mid-30s to 40-year range sitting on the school board. And I'm just thinking, what is their vested interest in sitting on these boards for so long? Is it the social status? Is it that they enjoy having potluck dinners together? What is going on here? Because they don't have a vested interest in the children in the school system anymore. Their children are older than I am.
Yeah. I know.
So
we just recently had a couple of newer people get on the school board, but other than that,
yes, just now we did.
Yeah, they'd all served for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I've just came to realize that's the status quo, is that we have the same people, the same families, the same in every position over and over again. And people will eventually retire, you know, maybe after a primary cycle before the general, and then we'll just slide somebody else in there. You know, we don't really get the chance to have a true primary, a true election to see who's really going to do this job versus which name is just the most familiar. So it's really watching the school board in constitutional league.
You're breaking up. I don't know if it's your earpods or what. Something keeps popping. You hear it? Okay. I'm hearing a popping noise really bad. Stop then.
Are we now?
Yeah, I don't hear it now.
Okay, super.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, the two biggest individual acts that got me flustered enough say there's three things. Bill Britton enforcing a mask mandate in some place that is supposedly as conservative as we all espouse to be in this area. The school board being just incumbent, asleep at the wheel, I mean, 18 years being the junior member on the school board was just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah.
And then watching the next election cycle, where by and large the same people sat in the same positions doing the same nothing. Those three things were really, I couldn't sit back and be this frustrated in a place that is supposed to be this conservative. It's supposed to be, this principled in our values and our morals and what we say we'll stand for. I couldn't sit back and watch it anymore. You have to throw your name in the hat, or just sit down and don't be concerned about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's frustration.
Yeah. So what got you focused on the state representative race?
That's a really good question, because a lot of people have asked, okay, if you're frustrated at the county level, if you're frustrated at the school board, why not those positions? So, as I mentioned when you introduced me, I've been a member of the military for, this year will be 20 years. I'm currently in the National Guard. So the National Guard, a lot of people don't know this, but the National Guard is first and foremost a state asset. So,
right.
Your neighbor who's a National Guard member, the National Guard is controlled by Tennessee, first and foremost. It is not a federal asset. It is not a Department of Army asset. It is not meant to be federalized willy-nilly and at every single occasion where somebody thinks it should be. So, by and large, I don't think that most state legislators have a finger on the pulse of the way that the National Guard is being used these days. During the entire 20-plus years of the global war on terror, it's become commonplace for the National Guard to be called up on deployments. It's been commonplace for the National Guard to be called up on JSET missions, which are joint training exercises overseas. The National Guard has been called up to go do, long-standing missions over in Europe where there's conflicts going on. But by and large, the National Guard is supposed to be a state asset first. So essentially, the commander-in-chief of the Tennessee National Guard would be Bill Lee. Now, in order for the National Guard to get called to war, first off, for the National Guard to go to war, we actually have to be at war, which would be voted on by Congress. The global war on terror was never actually a war. We had long-standing engagements in the Philippines, in Africa, in the Middle East. All over the world, we've had these global war on terror engagements, and the National Guard has been pulled into them repeatedly. That's in the past. It's already done. But moving forward, should we be using our state assets? Should we be sending our neighbors into these federal conflicts that may have been either created by politicians, may have been created by military-industrial complexes that may have less than altruistic values? Maybe it's not for national security. Maybe it's not even for regional state stabilization. But is that the job of the Tennessee National Guard to go fight, or is that Department of Army and federal troops? Yeah. So the National Guard being a state asset, me being a Guard member, and as much of a knuckle dragger as I may be, I think that I have a broader understanding of the usages and authorities of how the National Guard should be used than the average congressman does. I've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's happened with the National Guard over the past several years, not just for Tennessee, but by all across the country, is they have this. It's called DSCA. It's Defense Support of Civil Authorities. So DSCA missions are essentially, if we have a flood, if we have wildfires, if we have spontaneous riots, that's when we enact the National Guard. And when the National Guard is enacted on DSCA, that's when National Guard can be federally funded. So, oh my goodness, Tennessee has massive flooding or tornadoes. Now we can pull federal funding to activate National Guard troops to respond to this unpredicted event. It could be with riots. Oh my goodness, we have a spontaneous riot. The police can't handle it. The state police can't handle it. The sheriffs can't handle it. Let's federalize the National Guard for funding and let them help. But this DSCA mission has been abused. So I don't know if you noticed recently up in New York City, the New York National Guard has been in the subways in New York City right next to the police violating people's Fourth Amendment rights, doing searches of people's bags as they're boarding the subway. And their excuse for calling it a DISCA mission, a Defense Support of Civil Authorities, is there's a crime wave in New York. Okay, when you hamstring the police, when you hamstring the prosecutors, when you don't call in the sheriffs, when you don't call in the state police to back up local authorities, when you put criminals back on the street right after arresting them, that is not a spontaneous crime wave. That is not a spontaneous riot. That is not a call for Army, green suiters, as we like to call them. That is not a call for green suiters to come in and do civilian policing. That is a manufactured crisis. That is not a DISCA mission. But we've seen it happen time and time again. Back in 2020, during the Black Lives Matter riots up in Washington, D.C., well, the Washington, D.C. Metro Police didn't do anything about the riots. They didn't allow the sheriffs to do anything. They didn't call state police in. They didn't call civilian policing authorities in to deal with riots. You know what they did? They enacted National Guard units from all across the country and deployed them to Washington, D.C. They had special forces units from Utah there. They had Green Berets on the ground in Washington, D.C. doing civilian policing. As much as the BLM Antifa agenda, their narrative, their means of getting their message out there, as much as that is a disgusting, as much as I disagree with all of that stuff, in no way, shape, or form is it a green suiter. It is not a military member's job to do civilian policing against U.S. citizens. Absolutely not okay. Now, if we have state legislators who understand the uses and authorities of the National Guard, that can be prevented in the future. All it takes is somebody throwing their hand up and saying, "Hey, Governor, let's pump the brakes on this. Don't just sign these assets over to the Department of Army or to FEMA or to civilian police authorities. That is not the purpose of the Guard." But somebody has to be willing to put their hand up and say, "Slow down."
Yeah. So you decided to get in the state representative race. So how's your campaign going now that you started?
So I've been really good at marketing and selling coffee. Campaigning is a drastically different monster than sales and marketing. I think we've got some good momentum behind us right now. We've got a lot of people. The more people that I talk to throughout Hamblen and Grainger County, the more people are willing to vocalize their frustration with long-term incumbents who, one, we don't know what they actually do to benefit this community. Two, they don't communicate with anyone in this community. And three, we don't know what they're taking. We don't know where the lobbyist money is coming from. We don't know what the motivations are for somebody to sit in a job that pays $28,000 a year for this long. People are frustrated by seeing the same people in the same positions year in, year out. So we do have momentum. We have a lot of goodwill behind us. We have one speed bump right now. There was a protest by some of the long-term establishment Republicans here in Hamblen County to my running as a Republican. Now I got all my signatures on my petition to be on the primary ballot. I filed my primary ballot to run as a Republican. I turned all my paperwork in on time. And after turning my paperwork in, people filed a protest to my bona fides as a Republican. Now that is completely their right to do it. They filed protests. Referencing one of the state Republican Party bylaws, which says that a Republican candidate must have voted Republican in 3 out of the last 4 state Republican primaries. Well, that's next to impossible for military members to do.
Right.
Next to impossible for anyone who's relocated to do. So, again, this is completely their right to do it. From what I've seen so far, the state Republican chair, Mr. Scott Golden, has He's acted in accordance with the bylaws. He's been very communicative with me, and they have offered me a chance to appeal the protest, which I've chosen to exercise that option and have filed an appeal. Now, I've pulled all of my voting records going back to at least 2012. I've never voted anything but Republican. So it's going to be up to the state executive committee members to, look at my appeal letter, look at all the documentation that I've provided, and say, yes, we believe that Nathan Dressel is a Republican, is a conservative, and will stand for the values that we all believe in, or they can still deny it. So, it's
we always hear, we want to show respect to our men and women in uniform. We want to thank them for their service, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all the song and dance about that. Well, let's see what the state Republican Party says when you have a military member who's trying to run. But, as you said, a lot of people that are military, especially over 4 years, we know move around and everything and relocate sometimes once a year or every 2 or 3 years. So it's hard to meet that criteria of voting in the last 3 out of 4 primaries.
It is. I've been stationed in Utah, California, Washington, Utah again, North Carolina, Georgia. I mean, over 20 years, I've been stationed everywhere. I've doing the special forces thing, even if I wasn't deployed to a combat zone, just keeping up with my language training, my medical training, all of my special forces qualifications, I would be gone anywhere from 6 months to 9 months a year when I was not deployed. Yeah. So it's if you go through the state bylaws, I understand why there needs to be a bona fides. I understand why there needs to be a vetting process, but I think it's rather myopic to file a protest because maybe feathers are ruffled that I'm running. Maybe feathers are ruffled at my campaign tactics. Any number of reasons, but to pick and choose, minutia in the bylaws just to get rid of an opponent. I mean, let's be honest. That's what the Democrats do. Yeah. We're watching the Biden administration do it to Donald Trump right now. We're watching them do it to RFK Jr. right now. They are trying to eliminate competition from the ballot. Why? Because they can't beat them. They don't have a better record to run on.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with you there, and so that's what we see, and I've seen it through this state executive committee in the last several years of them using the state bylaws, the Republican Party bylaws, to take people off the ballot, and then I've watched them totally ignore it. I've seen the Republican State Executive Committee, the committee members themselves vote to not put a Democrat on the ballot, and then I've seen the state chair, Scott Golden, overrule the whole executive committee's vote and him alone put a Democrat on the ballot to run as a Republican. So I'm interested to see how this is going to turn out.
It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. I don't know when this is releasing. They might have made a decision before it, or I don't know.
Go ahead.
I think that it puts. Oh, okay. Additionally, yeah. So I've got military. I've got a 1-year-old and a 15-year-old. I have a very, very rapidly growing small business. I'm also the chair of the Young Republicans Federation for the Lakeway area chapter, which encompasses Grainger, Hamblen, and Jefferson County. Now, the Young Republicans Federation is a completely standalone organization from the Republican Party. There's a national Young Republicans Federation, state chapter for the Young Republicans Federation, and my wife and I got the Lakeway area chapter chartered this past March. which the Young Republicans Federation Executive Committee said, hey, we believe that this guy is a true conservative, and we would love to have him as the chair. So I think the party is going to be they're in an interesting spot. It's going to be an interesting spot if they do not want to endorse somebody that's been stationed all over the country. I'm sorry that I might have been deployed for an election or two. I promise I have voted in every general, and I have done my best attempt to vote in every single primary. Absentee ballots coming from the Philippines may not be readily available. Don't know what to tell you. But it's going to be an interesting spot given where we are today, and I know that feathers are ruffled locally because I came in swinging, I came in loud, I came in brash. But what other option do I have when I don't have deep pockets? In total, my campaign has gathered less than $3,500 in campaign funding. My opponent started this election cycle with nearly $30,000 just sitting in the coffers from previous campaigns, from donations throughout the past 2 years while he's been in office. What choice do I have but to be loud and aggressive?
Right.
Also, it's what I know.
Right. Exactly. So if things don't work out as far as the Republican primary, do you have plans after that, or do you want to talk about it? Okay. I mean, do you want to elaborate on that, or?
Let's see how everything shakes out with the Republican. Let's see how everything shakes out with my appeal first.
Okay.
But we're not going anywhere. I promise you.
Okay. Well, and that's fair. Like I said, I've seen this play out in the last 3 or 4 election cycles that I've seen with the shenanigans with the Republican State Executive Committee, and so this thing can go either way.
Yeah,
so
I mean, so I think they're in a tough spot right now, given my work history, given that I'm the chair of the Young Republicans Federation, and I mean, I've built my entire company. I've built Frontier Coffee off of conservative values. I mean, while everyone else shirks to diversity, equity, inclusion, and the Rainbow Mafia and the ESG, the environmental social governance scores, we built our entire brand punching every single one of those things right in the nose. I have a track record going years and years back, staking my brand, my company, my livelihood on standing by conservative values. So just because I didn't live here long enough, or because I don't have the right accent, whatever people want to say does not change the fact that I stand by my conservative values, and I'm not going to bend over just because somebody doesn't like what I have to say or doesn't think that my company is woke enough. I'm not going anywhere. So I can promise everyone that.
Okay. Good deal. I mean, I'm glad you're not backing down and not going to go sit down in the corner and be quiet. That's why a lot of this stuff happens. So
that's why a lot of people are ruffled right now.
Yeah.
They don't like nobody likes being called to task, and even more so, people don't like being called to task when they know that they have not been accomplishing said task.
Right. Well, and that's why one of the reasons why I do this podcast is to help folks get their message out, and the most of the establishment politicians, whether they're good or bad, most of them have a platform, with local news and stuff that they can talk, or they have the financial means of being able to get your information out. And that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, to help people, especially at the grassroots level, and give information to people. As I've said in other podcasts before, hey, if you're running for office, you want to come on, I will bring you on. Just be ready to answer questions, and
Yep.
so that's why I have you on. And if anybody else wants to come on, that's fine too. Um, so if you're able to continue with this campaign and get elected, let's say you're able to keep up with the campaign and win the primary, and you have a shot to go to Nashville. Um, what do you think your first year? Some of the things you'd like to accomplish then, or at least try to accomplish.
Yeah.
That's
So,
accomplishing something in your first years is hard.
yeah. I think there's one, you need to be elected to certain committees in order to influence things that the way that you want to, or the things that you want to. So I think that's going to be one of the first battles is, establishing some allies and getting on committees there. Um, but I think there's some bills that need to be reintroduced that haven't even made it past committee. So one of the one of the bills that was not seconded at the public service subcommittee, which my opponent is on, um, there was a bill. There was a bill that would limit executive power from the governor. So the bill, as introduced, stated that if there was an executive order being mandated that had potential potential felony or misdemeanor charges attached to it, the felony and misdemeanor charges could only be attached to the executive order with a majority vote by state Congress. So, when Bill Lee passed the mask executive order, luckily nobody out here was really enforcing it, but I guess we could have received a misdemeanor for not wearing our muzzles in the right building. So this bill got introduced at the Public Service Subcommittee, and nobody seconded it. Why do we have an entire subcommittee in the legislative branch not seconding a bill that limits executive power?
Yeah.
I don't get it. It doesn't add up to me. Every single thing. I mean, we all watch Schoolhouse Rock, right? We're supposed to balance power between these branches. So when we have legislative members that are so hungry for Bill Lee's approval that they will not do anything to step on his toes, I'm not okay with it. I would reintroduce that bill in a heartbeat. Another one. Say again.
One of the things that I know a lot of people were frustrated over was the legislature not putting his emergency powers in check. Maybe limited the powers to maybe 30 to 45 days to see what's going on, and then anything after that has to have legislative approval to extend.
Oh, they are so desperate for Bill Lee and Jack Johnson's approval. They are like puppy dogs, just waiting to get stroked on the head. It's embarrassing. I mean, let's see. I don't know if it's on here. Anyways, my yard signs say Nate Dressel, blah blah blah, true conservative. We're in the red state of Tennessee. All of these people sitting up there should be true conservatives. And you know what that means? It means having the guts to stand up, even if it's against your own party every now and then, to say, hold on, pump the brakes, let's fix this. Not just begging for scraps, not just begging for a photo opportunity from the leadership. So, reintroducing the bill which limits executive order power would be one of my first ones. Additionally, I think the Judiciary Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, needs to be held to task. So the House passed the bill that would not allow the FBI to come in and utilize local law enforcement for spying on Tennessee citizens. Well, the Senate Judiciary Committee killed it. Strangely enough, what is it? A week and a half after the Senate Judiciary Committee of Tennessee killed the bill limiting FBI power within the state, the federal government extended the FISA, where they don't need warrants to spy on U.S. citizens.
Right.
I can't help but think those two are a little too connected in that time frame. So when I asked my opponent about, hey, you voted to limit FBI power in the state of Tennessee, right? Yes, he did. what can we do when we have a Senate Judiciary Committee that throws us to the wolves, to the FBI? And he just said, well, it wasn't going to go anywhere anyways. I said, hold on, what do you mean? This bill passed almost unanimously by Republicans in the House, and every single person knew that it was dead in the water? That's your excuse, is it wasn't going to go anywhere? Is nobody's going to have these conversations?
Well, and we've seen it's a lot easier to man up, and I'm just talking about politicians in general. And I'll give you a great example here in a minute. It's a lot easier to man up and vote for something when you know it's going to fail in the Senate.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like uh, the heartbeat bill and stuff here in Tennessee with abortion. You know, you can sit back and say, yeah, I'm going to take the endorsement by Tennessee Right to Life, and I'm a strong uh, pro-life conservative, and I'll vote for all of this stuff. But when, because they never had a clue that the Supreme Court was going to send it back to send Roe back to the
Right.
states, and so once that happened, and then they started getting a little heat from the pro-choice crowd, then that's when they started wanting to revisit the issue. We need to make some changes. The same bill that they voted for and was so pro-life about. It's
Yeah.
easy to do that when you think that there's not a snowball's chance of that becoming law.
Yeah. That's feckless leadership.
Yep.
It's, I, ugh, it makes me nauseous to think about people like that. If they're worried about pushback from anyone, you need to lead with your principles and your morals, and in a state like this where you have conservatives and Republicans voting you into office, it's okay to be outspokenly conservative. That is what your constituents want. Uh, Funny enough, well, not that funny. We have led our company on such principled conservative stances that we've come under attack from left wing media, the news organizations of Tennessee Holler, the autistic communists over at the Young Turks. Like, they've done smear pieces on our company, on me personally, on me being an outspoken conservative who owns a coffee company. We've received death threats. People have hired witches to, put spells on my wife to have a stillbirth. Luckily, he's 1 year old now. We're good on that one. But we've gone through the ringer on it. So if you think that I'm going to sit in the chambers and waver on conservative values, my goodness, people, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I have no problem walking into the party and telling them this. I have no problem walking into the chambers and telling them. I don't care. Principled leadership is principled. It's not feckless.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, well, we're pushing about 45 minutes here. So if people want to learn more about your campaign and stuff, where can they find you? Social media, website? Go ahead and plug your stuff there and let us know.
So we are on the website. It is votenatedressel.com. That's NATEDRESSEL, just like in the bottom of the screen there. And make sure I get the socials right. The Instagram is Nate4, that's the number 4, Nate4TN. We also have Facebook, Nate Dressel for Tennessee. And we have X, formerly known as Twitter, which is also Nate, the number 4TN. Funny enough, I don't know how my opponent is communicating with anyone. He made one Facebook post back in 2022 and pretty much went crickets since then. So if any of you guys know how he's voting or how he's getting his message out, maybe there's a secret newsletter I don't know about. I don't know. But yeah, communication with everyone is of the utmost importance. So visit the socials, visit the website. You can give me a phone call. The number's on the website. You can shoot me an email. I don't have a campaign staff, so you'll get me on the
phone. Oh, okay. Well, I heard about you, and actually, as I told you when I first spoke with you, I first heard about you from your opponent, and And so I thought I'd look you up and give you a chance to come on and talk about yourself and talk about your campaign and what you're up against and everything. And whenever you find out more about what's going to happen with your campaign here in the next few days,
Yep.
you're more welcome to come back and we'll talk about that as well. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Let's see how it shakes out, and then we can go from there.
But as I've said, whether it be you or anyone else that wants to come on and talk about their campaign and stuff, more welcome to come on and we'll talk about it and stuff. Uh, anything else you need to add before we get off here or anything?
I think I've ranted and raved all I have to for one evening. Uh,
Yeah,
it's easy to get me spun up on all this stuff. It's because I believe in it. I think if we're willing to gripe about it, we should be willing to fix it. I've led a career based on seeing a problem, formulating a mission plan, and then executing a mission. And I see problems here right now, so I plan on fixing them and plan on accomplishing that mission.
good deal. All right. Well, when I finish recording here, just stay on the line for a few minutes and we'll finish up. Okay.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. As I said, anybody else that's wanting to come on and talk, that's fine. Talk about their campaign. Share this information with other folks and help get the information out. This is not supporting any candidate. This is giving you information to make your decision on who you want to vote for in the primaries and the election. We don't have much of a media around here. It's coming on people like me with podcasts and stuff to share this with you. So with that, I say share the information. God bless you. Have a good day, and we'll see you on the next podcast.